The purple sand of Verath Prime stretched endlessly under the twin suns. The desert was quiet now, peaceful even, but the ground still held secrets from 6 months ago. Scattered across the dunes were pieces of metal, broken weapons, and strange objects that did not belong to this world. Zix Era skittered across the sand on her 6 legs, her young body barely the size of a human child. Her chitinous shell gleamed green in the morning light, and her large compound eyes scanned the ground with curiosity. Elder Mothrek had told her many times to stay away from the old battlefield, but young hatchlings rarely listened to warnings about places they had never seen. The war had ended before Zixara truly understood what war meant. The Crithian Empire and the humans had fought here, on this very sand. Many died. Many more were injured. Then one day, the fighting stopped. The adults spoke in hushed clicks and chirps about treaties and ceasefires, words that meant little to a hatchling who only wanted to explore. She climbed over a half-buried piece of metal that stuck out from the sand like a broken tooth. It was smooth and gray, definitely not Crithian technology. Human-made, she thought. Everything the humans left behind had this strange smoothness to it, unlike the organic curves of Crithian design. Zixara spotted something round partially buried in the sand ahead. She rushed forward, her small legs carrying her quickly across the dunes. When she reached it, she used her front legs to dig around the object, throwing purple sand in all directions. The thing was hard and dome-shaped. As more sand fell away, she could see it was some kind of protective covering. It had a clear front part, now cracked and dirty, and the rest was a dark green color. Strange symbols were painted on the side in white. She could not read human writing yet, but she traced the letters with one delicate leg. HAYES. The object was heavy for her small size, but Zixara was determined. She gripped it with her front legs and began dragging it back toward the settlement. The helmet, for that was what it was, left a long trail in the sand behind her. By the time she reached the edge of the settlement, the twin suns were high in the sky. Zixara was tired but excited. She had found treasure. She pulled the helmet through the narrow entrance of her family's dwelling, a dome-shaped structure made from hardened sand and organic resin. Elder Mothrek was in the main chamber, his old shell marked with the scars of many battles. His antennae twitched when he saw what Zixara was dragging. "What have you brought into our home?" he asked, in their clicking language. "I found it in the desert," Zixara said proudly. "It is interesting." Elder Mothrek moved closer, his legs clicking on the smooth floor. He bent down to examine the helmet, and his whole body seemed to stiffen. "This is human," he said, his voice hard. "From the war." "I know," Zixara said. "But the war is over now." "You said so yourself." "The war may be over, but these objects carry memories of violence," Elder Mothrek said. He reached out to take the helmet, but Zixara pulled it away quickly. "It is mine. I found it," she said. The old Crithian looked at his young charge for a long moment. He had raised Zixara since her mother died in the war. He had tried to teach her caution, respect, and the proper way of their people, but hatchlings had their own minds. "Very well," he said finally. "But keep it in your chamber. I do not want to see it." Zixara chirped happily and dragged the helmet to her small room. It was a simple space with a sleeping pad and a few objects she had collected over her short life. Interesting rocks, pieces of colorful crystal. And now this. She examined the helmet more closely in the privacy of her room. It was clearly meant to protect a head, probably a human head. The clear part at the front was very dirty, but she could see through it a little. There were straps inside, and soft padding that had gotten hard and crusty. Zixara found a cloth and some water. She began cleaning the helmet carefully, wiping away the purple sand and dirt. As she worked, more details emerged. The green color was actually a pattern, like the leaves of plants. There were scratches and burn marks across the surface. This helmet had seen battle. When she finished cleaning, Zixara sat back to admire her work. The helmet looked much better now. The clear front part was still cracked, but she could see through it. The white letters spelling Hayes stood out clearly against the green. Then Zix-Ara had an idea. She turned the helmet upside down. The opening where a head would go was now facing up. She climbed inside carefully, settling her small body into the curved space. The helmet was much too big for a human head to fit a hatchling, but when she sat inside it, the curve of the helmet surrounded her like a protective shell. It felt like sitting on a throne. Zix-Ara chirped with delight. She had found the perfect seat. The inside of the helmet was surprisingly comfortable once she arranged herself properly. She could see out over the edge, surveying her small room like a queen overseeing her kingdom. Over the next few days, Zix-Ara spent more and more time sitting in her helmet throne. She would climb inside to think, to rest, or simply to feel special. Elder Mothrek noticed, but said nothing. If this strange human object kept the hatchling entertained and out of trouble, perhaps it was not so bad. But Zix-Ara was curious about more than just the helmet's usefulness as furniture. She wondered about the human who had worn it. Who was Hayes? Where were they now? Had they survived the war and gone home to their own planet? Or had they died here in the purple sand like so many others? She asked Elder Mothrek one evening during their meal. The human whose helmet I have. Do you know what happened to them? Elder Mothrek's antennae drooped. How would I know the fate of one human soldier? There were thousands here. The name says Hayes, Zix-Ara said. That must mean something. Human names are not like ours, Elder Mothrek explained. They do not carry clan history or hive designation. A name is just a name to them, but it must mean something to Hayes. Zix-Ara insisted. They put it on their helmet. Elder Mothrek was quiet for a moment. Then he said, the humans mark their equipment with names, so it can be returned if they fall in battle. It is their way of ensuring they are remembered. Zix-Ara thought about this as she returned to her room. She climbed into her helmet throne and sat very still. The human named Hayes wanted to be remembered. They put their name on this helmet so that even if they died, someone would know they had been here. Now Zix-Ara knew. She was sitting in something more than just an interesting object. She was sitting in someone's memory, someone's hope that they would not be forgotten. The helmet felt different now. It was still comfortable, still her favorite place to sit, but it meant something more. Zix-Ara decided she would take good care of it. She would keep it clean and safe. If Hayes could not return for their helmet, then she would guard it for them. Outside, the twin suns set over the purple desert. The old battlefield lay quiet under the stars. And in a small room, in a Crithian dwelling, a young hatchling sat in a helmet throne, thinking about memories and humans and the strange ways that war leaves its marks on the world. 3 weeks after Zix-Ara found the helmet, something unusual happened. A human ship landed near the settlement, the first one since the ceasefire. The Crithians watched nervously as 5 humans in clean uniforms walked down the ramp. They carried equipment but no weapons, which was a good sign. Zix-Ara watched from behind Elder Mothrek as the humans approached the settlement's gathering place. The lead human was tall, with short dark hair and friendly eyes. He raised one hand in greeting. "Good morning," he said in surprisingly clear Crithian language. "My name is Captain Greg Mason. We are a recovery team from Earth. We have permission from your council to search for human remains and equipment." The settlement's administrator, a large Crithian named Vectal, stepped forward. "You may search the battlefield area only. Do not disturb our dwellings." "Understood," Captain Mason said. He gestured to his team. "We will be respectful. We are only looking for our people and their belongings." The humans set up camp at the edge of the settlement. Zix-Ara could not stop watching them. They moved differently than Crithians. On only 2 legs, with a strange, swaying motion, they spoke to each other in their own language, which sounded soft and flowing compared to Crithian clicks. One of the humans was a woman with brown skin and black hair tied back. She carried a device that beeped and flashed with lights. Zix-Ara learned her name was Sergeant Amy Rodriguez. She seemed to be looking for something specific with her device. Zix-Ara wanted to get closer, but Elder Mothrek had forbidden it. "They are here for a sad purpose," he said. Let them work in peace. But curiosity was stronger than obedience for a young hatchling. The next day, when Elder Mothrek was busy with settlement duties, Zixara crept out to the old battlefield. She stayed hidden behind rocks and ruins, watching the humans work. They were very careful with everything they found. When they discovered bones, whether human or Crithian, they treated them with great respect. They placed each item in special containers and recorded information on their devices. Sometimes they would stop and just stand quietly, as if thinking about the person who had died there. Zixara moved closer, trying to hear what they were saying. Captain Mason and Sergeant Rodriguez were examining a piece of damaged armor. "Any identification?" Mason asked. Rodriguez scanned it with her device. "No, sir. Too damaged." They moved on to another area. Zixara followed, keeping low to the ground. Her green shell helped her blend with the sparse vegetation that grew between the rocks. "We are still missing Hayes," a third human said. He was younger, with red hair and pale skin. "His beacon went dead in this sector." "Lieutenant Daniel Hayes," Captain Mason said quietly. "He was a good Marine. His daughter deserves to know what happened to him." Zixara's body went rigid. Hayes. They were looking for someone named Hayes. The same name on her helmet. "He died protecting civilians," Rodriguez added. "Both human and Crithian. The report said he held off a rogue faction attack on the shelter near here. He got 23 people out," the red-haired human said. "Men, women, children. Half of them were Crithian." Captain Mason nodded. "That is the kind of Marine he was. Always thought about others first." Zixara's mind raced. The helmet in her room had belonged to this Lieutenant Daniel Hayes. He had died saving people. He had saved Crithians. He had a daughter who wanted to know what happened to him. She stayed hidden as the humans continued their search. They found more equipment, more remains, but nothing that belonged to Hayes. As the day wore on, their voices became quieter, more discouraged. "The beacon puts him right in this area," Rodriguez said, studying her device. "But we have searched everywhere. Maybe his suit was completely destroyed," the red-haired human suggested. "The report said he took a direct hit from a plasma cannon." "We need something," Mason said firmly. "Anything to bring back to his family. Keep searching." Zixara waited until they moved to another section of the battlefield. Then she ran back to the settlement as fast as her 6 legs could carry her. She burst into her dwelling, startling Elder Mothrek. "The humans are looking for Hayes," she said breathlessly. Elder Mothrek turned from his work. "Who?" "The human whose helmet I have, Lieutenant Daniel Hayes. He died here saving people. He saved Crithians." The old Crithian's antennae rose in surprise. "How do you know this?" "I heard the humans talking. They are looking for anything that belonged to him. They want to bring something back to his daughter." Zixara rushed to her room and looked at the helmet throne. It suddenly seemed much more important than before. This was not just an interesting object. This was proof that Hayes had been here. This was something his daughter could hold and know that her father had been found. But it was also her throne. Her special seat. The thing that made her feel important and safe. She sat in the helmet, torn between 2 desires. She wanted to help Hayes's daughter, but she also did not want to lose her treasure. Elder Mothrek appeared in the doorway. He looked at Zixara sitting in the helmet, then at the conflict clear in her body language. "What will you do, little one?" he asked gently. "I do not know," Zixara admitted. "The helmet is yours. You found it," Elder Mothrek said. "But knowing what you know now, can you keep it?" Zixara climbed out of the helmet and looked at it carefully. She traced the letters of Hayes's name again, with 1 delicate leg. "He saved Crithians," she said quietly. "He died protecting our people." "Yes," Elder Mothrek said. "And I was wrong to tell you to fear human objects. This Hayes was brave. He saw beyond species and war. He saw people who needed help." Zixara made her decision. She picked up the helmet with some effort and carried it toward the entrance. "I will give it to them," she said. "His daughter should have it." Elder Mothrex stepped aside to let her pass. That is a mature choice, Zixara. Your mother would be proud. The walk to the human camp felt very long. Zixara's legs trembled, both from the weight of the helmet and from nervousness. She had never been this close to humans before. What if they were angry at her for keeping the helmet? What if they thought she had stolen it? Captain Mason saw her approaching and immediately knelt down to her level. This surprised Zixara. In Crithian culture, adults did not lower themselves for hatchlings. Hello there, Mason said in Crithian. His accent was rough but understandable. Can we help you? Zixara set the helmet down in front of him. This is Hayes's helmet. I found it 3 weeks ago. I cleaned it. I did not know he was a hero. Mason's eyes widened. He picked up the helmet carefully, as if it were made of glass. He turned it over, examining every detail. When he saw the name stenciled on the side, his face changed. Hayes, he whispered, then louder, Rodriguez, come here. The sergeant rushed over. When she saw the helmet, she made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Where did you find this? Mason asked Zixara gently. In the purple sand, near a broken metal structure, Zixara said. I did not know what it meant. I just thought it was interesting. You brought this all the way here by yourself? Rodriguez asked. Zixara nodded. It was my throne. I sat in it. But now I know it should go to his daughter. See. Mason looked at the young hatchling with something like wonder in his eyes. You took care of it. You cleaned it. That is very kind. Hayes saved Crithians, Zixara said simply. He was brave. I wanted to keep the helmet. But his daughter deserves it more than I do. Captain Mason set the helmet down and extended his hand toward Zixara. She was not sure what this gesture meant, but she reached out with one leg and touched his hand. His skin was warm and soft, so different from her own chitinous shell. Thank you, Mason said. You have given a grieving family something precious. You have given them proof that Daniel Hayes did not disappear without a trace. Rodriguez was examining the helmet more closely. Captain, there is a data port here. If his chip survived, we might have his final logs. Check it, Mason ordered. Rodriguez pulled out a device and connected it to the helmet. After a moment, her screen lit up. We have data, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Personal logs, mission recordings, everything. Mason looked back at Zixara. Would you like to stay while we listen? Hayes would want someone to know his story. Zixara settled onto the ground, her legs folded beneath her. Yes. I would like to know about the human whose throne I sat in. Rodriguez activated the first recording. A human voice came from the device, warm and tired but full of life. Day 47 on Varath Prime. This planet grows on you. Met some Crithian kids today at the neutral zone. They were curious about my helmet. The voice of Lieutenant Daniel Hayes filled the air around the human camp. Zixara listened carefully as the recordings played. Hayes spoke about many things. His daily patrols, the strange beauty of Varath Prime's purple deserts, the weather, and most often, his daughter back on Earth. Katie turned 8 last week, Hayes said in one recording. I missed her birthday again. 3rd year in a row. She sent me a video message. She is losing her front teeth and looks so grown up. She asked when I am coming home. I told her soon. I hope that is true. This war needs to end. These Crithians are not so different from us. They want peace. They want their children to be safe, just like we do. Zixara felt something strange inside her. An emotion she did not have a name for. Hayes had missed his daughter's birthday to be here, fighting a war. And now he would miss all her birthdays forever. Captain Mason noticed Zixara's distress. Are you all right? He asked. He had a daughter, Zixara said quietly. Like me, a hatchling. Yes. Mason said gently. Katie is 12 now. She asks about her father every day. Rodriguez had been working with the data from the helmet. Captain, you need to hear this last recording. It was made the day Hayes died. Mason nodded and Rodriguez played the file. Hayes's voice came through. But this time it was different. Urgent. Frightened, but determined. This is Lieutenant Daniel Hayes, service number 7734521. If anyone finds this recording, know that I am about to do something probably stupid. There is a group of civilians trapped in a shelter 200 meters from my position. Mixed human and Crithian families. A rogue faction has them pinned down with heavy weapons. Command said, extraction is impossible, but I cannot leave them there. Not when I can help. There was a pause. The sound of weapon fire in the background. I am going in. If I do not make it, tell Katie I love her. Tell her that some things are worth fighting for. Tell her that I met good people here, brave people, and that her daddy did not die for nothing. Hayes out. The recording ended. Silence filled the camp. Rodriguez wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Captain Mason stood very still. His jaw tight. Zix Era felt wetness on her carapace and realized she was producing the Crithian equivalent of tears. Hayes had known he might die. He went anyway. For strangers. For people from both sides of a war. I want to give the helmet back, Zix Ara said suddenly. Everyone looked at her in confusion. Give it back? Mason asked. To Katie, Hayes's daughter. I want her to have it. But first. Zix Ara paused, gathering courage. I want to do something. Can I keep it just a little longer? Just a few more days? Mason exchanged glances with Rodriguez. Then he smiled. Of course. The helmet is special to you too. Take the time you need. We will be here for another week finishing our work. Thank you, Zix Ara said. She carefully picked up the helmet again. It felt heavier now. Weighted with knowledge and responsibility. When Zix Ara returned to the settlement, she did not take the helmet to her room. Instead, she carried it to the central gathering area, where young Crithians played and learned together. Elder Mothrek found her there, sitting beside the helmet, watching the other hatchlings. What are you doing, little one? He asked. I am going to tell them about Hayes. Zix Ara said. About what he did. About why this helmet is important. Zix. I am going to tell them about Hayes. About why this helmet is important. Elder Mothrek's antennae lifted in surprise. That is a good idea. May I help? Together. They called the young Crithians over. There were 7 of them. All around Zix Ara's age. They gathered curiously. Their compound eyes fixed on the strange human object. This is a helmet, Zix Ara began. It belonged to a human named Lieutenant Daniel Hayes. He wore it to protect his head during the war. But he did not die fighting us. He died protecting us. She told them everything she had learned. About Hayes and his daughter Katie. About how he went to save civilians even when it was dangerous. About his last words, asking that people remember why he did it. The young Crithians listened with rapt attention. When Zix Ara finished, one of them, a small hatchling named Pixar, asked, Can we see inside? Zix Ara showed them the inside of the helmet. The padding, the straps, the small device that held Hayes's recordings. She let each of them touch it carefully. I have been using it as a throne, Zix Ara admitted. I did not know its true purpose. Now I want everyone to know about Hayes. I want his story to be remembered here, on the planet where he died. End quote. Over the next few days, word spread through the settlement. Adult Crithians came to hear about the human who saved their people. Some remembered the attack Hayes had stopped. They had not known the name of the human marine who gave his life for them. But now they did. Zix Ara became a storyteller. She played Hayes's recordings for anyone who wanted to listen. She told his story over and over, each time feeling more connected to this human she had never met. One evening, Commander Lisa Turner arrived at the settlement. She was a human diplomat who worked with the Crithian Council. Captain Mason had contacted her about what Zix Ara had been doing. Turner was a woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She found Zix Ara sitting by the helmet, surrounded by young Crithians, who were listening to Hayes's voice describe his daughter's latest video message. Hello. Zix Ara, Turner said in perfect Crithian. May I sit with you? Zix-Ara nodded eagerly. Having a human diplomat interested in her story made her feel important. Turner settled onto the ground, folding her legs in a way that looked uncomfortable, but which she maintained with ease. Captain Mason told me what you have been doing, sharing Hayes's story with your community. That is remarkable for someone so young. Hayes was brave, Zix-Ara said simply. People should know. They should, Turner agreed. And I have a surprise for you. Would you like to speak with Katie Hayes? Zix-Ara's entire body went rigid with shock. Hayes's daughter? But she is on Earth. That is very far away. We have communication technology, Turner said with a smile. If you would like, I can arrange a video call. Katie has been asking about the young Crithian who found her father's helmet. She knows about me? Zix-Ara asked in wonder. The whole story has spread through the human recovery teams. You are quite famous among us now, Turner said. A young hatchling who turned a war relic into a throne, then chose to honor its true meaning. That is a powerful story, Zix-Ara. The next day, Turner returned with a portable communication device. She set it up in the settlement's main building with permission from the administrators. Zix-Ara sat in front of it, trembling with nervousness. Elder Mothrex stood behind her for support. The screen flickered to life. A young human appeared, with dark hair and sad eyes that somehow still managed to smile. Katie Hayes looked just like Zix-Ara had imagined from her father's descriptions, except older and with a deep sadness around her. Hi, Katie said softly. You must be Zix-Ara. Yes, Zix-Ara managed to say. You are Katie. Your father talked about you in his recordings. I know, Katie said, her voice breaking a little. Commander Turner let me hear some of them. Thank you for taking care of his helmet. Thank you for cleaning it and keeping it safe. I did not know it was special at first, Zix-Ara admitted. I just thought it was an interesting throne. I am sorry I kept it for so long. Do not be sorry, Katie said quickly. You gave my dad's helmet a purpose after he was gone. You turned it into something meaningful in your community. That is beautiful. Zix-Ara felt her courage growing. Your father was a hero. He saved many Crithians. He saved some of my people's families. I want everyone to remember that. Katie wiped her eyes. Can I ask you something? Yes. Would you keep the helmet there? Katie asked. On Vareth Prime? Instead of sending it back to Earth? This shocked everyone in the room. Elder Mothrek's antennae shot up. Commander Turner looked surprised. Zix-Ara just stared at the screen. But it is your father's, Zix-Ara said. It should be with you. My father died there, on your world. Protecting your people, Katie said. Maybe his helmet should stay there too. Maybe it should be a reminder that humans and Crithians can care about each other. That we can protect each other. What would we do with it? Zix-Ara asked. Katie thought for a moment. Make it into something special. Something that honors what my dad believed in. He believed in peace. He believed that we are all just people trying to protect our families. Commander Turner leaned forward. Katie, are you certain about this? Yes, Katie said firmly. And in that moment, she looked much older than 12. My dad's helmet found someone who appreciates what it means. Who sees past the war to the person who wore it. That is more important than it sitting in a box in my house. Zix-Ara looked at the helmet, then back at Katie. An idea was forming in her mind. Something bigger than herself. Bigger than one hatchling's throne. What if we made a special place? Zix-Ara said slowly. A place where humans and Crithians could come to remember the war, but also remember the peace that came after. Your father's helmet could be there, so everyone can see what one person did to save others. Katie's sad eyes brightened. Like a memorial? Yes, Zix-Ara said, the idea taking shape. A memorial garden. A place of peace built where there was once fighting. Elder Mothrek placed a leg on Zix-Ara's shoulder. That is a worthy idea, little one. Commander Turner was already making notes. I can help with this. The human settlement would support it. The idea of a memorial garden spread quickly through both human and Crithian communities. Within days, representatives from both sides were meeting to discuss the project. Zixara attended these meetings, sitting quietly while adults made plans, feeling both important and small at the same time. Mayor Paul Grant arrived from the human settlement 200 kilometers away. He was an older man with white hair and a kind face marked by many years under Earth's sun. He shook hands with the Krithian counselor, Veshkara, in a gesture that symbolized cooperation. "This memorial should be on the old battlefield," Veshkara said. His translator device converted his clicks into human language. "The place where Hayes fell protecting our people." "Agreed," Mayor Grant said, "but it should not be a place of sadness. It should be a place of hope." "A garden," as young Zixara suggested. All eyes turned to Zixara, who felt very small under so much attention. Elder Mothrek encouraged her with a gentle touch of his antenna. "I think," Zixara said carefully, "it should have plants from both worlds. Earth plants and Vareth Prime plants. Growing together. That is perfect," Commander Turner said. She had stayed on the planet to help coordinate the project. Unity through growth. Life from a place of death. The planning took weeks. Human engineers worked with Krithian builders to design the memorial. It would be circular, representing the cycle of war and peace. At the center would be a raised platform made from smooth stone. And on that platform would sit Hayes's helmet. But not just sitting. Zixara had insisted that the helmet be positioned upside down, the way she had first used it as a throne. "So other children can sit in it," she explained. "So they can understand that something from war can become something peaceful." During this time, Zixara continued talking with Katie through the communication device. They spoke every few days, sharing stories about their lives. Katie told Zixara about Earth, about oceans and forests and cities that reached into the sky. Zixara told Katie about Vareth Prime, about the purple deserts and the way the twin suns painted everything in shades of violet and gold. "I wish I could visit," Katie said during one call. "I want to see the memorial. I want to see where my dad was. I want to see where my dad was." "Maybe someday you can," Zixara said. "The war is over. Maybe families can visit now." Katie's mother, Helen Hayes, appeared in the frame beside her daughter. She was a tall woman with the same dark hair as Katie, but with more lines on her face from grief and worry. "Mrs. Hayes," Zixara said respectfully. "Please, call me Helen," the woman said. Her voice was soft but strong. "I want to thank you for what you are doing. Daniel would be so happy to know his sacrifice meant something beyond just that one day. He saved many people," Zixara said. "Some of them have come to our settlement to help build the memorial. They want to honor him too." Helen's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "That means everything to us. To know that he is remembered there, by the people he protected." As the memorial construction began, something unexpected happened. Krithian families who had been saved by Hayes came forward. They brought their own stories, their own memories of that terrible day. An older Krithian named Teshvik stood before the settlement and spoke. "I was in that shelter with my 3 younglings. We heard the weapons fire getting closer. We thought we would die. Then a human in green armor came crashing through the wall. He was already wounded, but he picked up my smallest child and said, 'Go, go, go.' He held the enemy back while we ran. I never learned his name until now." A human woman named Lisa Moreno shared her story too. "Hayes was in my unit. The day of the attack, command ordered us to fall back. Hayes refused. He said there were kids in that shelter. He gave me his sidearm and told me to get the civilians out while he covered us. I wanted to stay and fight with him, but he ordered me to go. He saved 43 people that day. 20 of them were children. These stories were recorded and would be displayed at the memorial." Zixara listened to all of them, understanding more and more the weight of what Hayes had done. The construction took 3 months. Both species worked side by side. Digging, planting, building. The circular memorial garden took shape gradually. Earth roses were planted alongside Vareth Prime crystal flowers. Human oak trees were placed near Crithian spiral vines. Everything was arranged so the plants from different worlds would intertwine as they grew. At the center, the stone platform rose like a small hill. Steps led up to it from 4 directions, representing the 4 major settlements in the region, both human and Crithian. Finally, the day came to place the helmet. Zix-Ara carried it herself, walking slowly up the steps with Elder Mothrek beside her. Captain Mason and Commander Turner followed. Behind them came the families Hayes had saved, both human and Crithian. The platform had a special mounting that would hold the helmet securely upside down. Zix-Ara placed the helmet carefully into the mount. It fit perfectly, just as the designers had promised. When she stepped back, the helmet sat there like a small throne, just as it had in her room so many months ago. But now, it belonged to everyone. "It looks right," Elder Mothrek said quietly. "Yes," Zix-Ara agreed. "It looks like home." The dedication ceremony was planned for the following week, but before the official event, Zix-Ara and a group of young Crithians did something special. They gathered flowers from the new garden, both Earth and Vareth Prime varieties, and wove them into small wreaths. They placed these around the helmet throne, decorating it with living color. Other hatchlings began visiting the memorial, even though it was not officially open yet. Word spread that you could sit in the human helmet that once protected a hero. Young Crithians would climb onto the platform and carefully settle into the helmet, feeling special and protected, just as Zix-Ara had in her room. Human children who lived in the nearby settlement began coming too. At first, the adults worried about how the 2 groups of children would interact. But they need not have worried. Children saw the world more simply than adults. They saw a throne that everyone could share. Zix-Ara watched one day as a small human boy climbed into the helmet throne, while 3 Crithian hatchlings waited their turn. They were not fighting or arguing. They were taking turns, the way children do when they find something fun to play with. "This is what your father wanted," Zix-Ara whispered, thinking of Hayes. "For us to share. For us to be friends." The official dedication ceremony arrived on a clear day when both suns shone brightly in the violet sky. Hundreds of beings gathered at the memorial garden, humans and Crithians standing together. Mayor Grant gave a speech about peace and sacrifice. Councillor Veshishkara spoke about honor and bravery. Captain Mason read from Hayes's personal logs, his voice cracking with emotion. Then it was Zix-Ara's turn to speak. She had been nervous about this for days, but Elder Mothrek had helped her practice. She climbed onto the platform beside the helmet throne and looked out at the crowd. "My name is Zix-Ara," she began. Her voice came through a translator so the humans could understand. "I found Lieutenant Daniel Hayes's helmet in the sand 6 months ago. I did not know what it meant. I just thought it was interesting. I cleaned it, and I sat in it like a throne. I felt special when I sat in it." She paused, looking at the helmet beside her. "Now I know that Hayes was special. Not this helmet. He was special because he cared about people who were not like him. He cared about Crithian children. Even though we were supposed to be his enemies, he gave his life so others could live. That is what makes someone special. Not what they wear or what they look like, but what they do for others." The crowd was silent, listening. "This helmet throne is for everyone now," Zix-Ara continued. "Human children and Crithian children can sit in it. They can feel special and safe, the way I did, and maybe, when they sit in it, they will remember Hayes and what he did. Maybe they will learn that we are not so different. That we all want our children to be safe. That we all can be brave and kind." When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause and clicking, the sounds of approval from both species mixing together. Katie Hayes appeared on a large screen that had been set up for the ceremony. She could not be there in person, but she wanted to be part of the dedication. When she saw the memorial, the garden, and the helmet throne surrounded by flowers, she cried openly. "Thank you," she said through her tears. "Thank you for remembering my dad. Thank you for making his sacrifice mean something. He always said that people were worth fighting for. All people. You have proven him right." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. Humans and Crithians stood together, heads bowed, remembering not just Hayes but all who had died in the war. Then, As if by unspoken agreement, the children moved forward. Human and Crithian younglings approached the platform together. They took turns sitting in the helmet throne, placing flowers around it, touching it gently with respect. Zixara watched them and felt something warm spread through her body. The helmet was no longer just hers. It belonged to the future now, to all the children who would come here and learn about peace and bravery and sacrifice. Elder Mothrek stood beside her. "You have done something important, little one. You have turned an object of war into a symbol of hope." "Hayes did that," Zixara said. "I just found his helmet." "No," Elder Mothrek said gently. "Hayes gave his life for others. But you gave his death meaning. You made sure he was remembered not just as a soldier, but as a person who cared. That is just as important." 1 year passed after the memorial dedication. The garden had grown thick and beautiful, with earth plants and Vareth Prime flora intertwining exactly as Zixara had imagined. The memorial had become a gathering place, a destination for visitors from both human and Crithian settlements across the planet. Zixara had changed too. She was bigger now, her shell hardened, and her legs stronger. She had become the unofficial junior guide of the memorial, spending her days showing visitors around and telling them Hayes' story. She never tired of it. Elder Mothrek watched with pride as his young charge explained the meaning of each plant, each stone, each element of the memorial. She had matured beyond her years, carrying a responsibility that would have crushed many adults. On a warm morning when the twin suns painted everything in shades of gold and purple, something special happened. A transport ship landed at the settlement, larger than the usual supply vessels. Zixara watched curiously as the ramp lowered. Commander Turner emerged first, smiling widely. Behind her came a young human girl, with dark hair and familiar sad eyes. Katie Hayes had come to Vareth Prime. Zixara felt her entire body freeze. Katie was really here. Not just a face on a screen, but a real person standing on the purple sand of Vareth Prime. Katie saw her and smiled, a real smile that pushed away some of the sadness in her eyes. She walked forward, her mother Helen close behind. "Zixara," Katie said. "I am finally here." "You came," Zixara managed to say. "I had to see it," Katie said. "I had to see the place where my dad was. The place where you found him." Helen Hayes knelt down to Zixara's level, just as Captain Mason had done a year ago. "Thank you for everything you have done for our family. You gave us closure and hope. That is a rare gift." Over the next hour, Zixara led Katie and Helen through the memorial garden. She showed them every plant, explained the meaning behind the circular design, and pointed out the names of all the people Hayes had saved, etched into stone markers around the garden. When they reached the central platform with the helmet throne, Katie stopped and stared. Tears ran down her face. But she was smiling too. "It is perfect," she whispered. "It is exactly what he would have wanted." 2 young Crithian hatchlings were taking turns sitting in the helmet, giggling and playing. When they saw the visitors, they quickly climbed down, nervous about being scolded. "No, please," Katie said quickly. "Do not stop playing. That is what it is for." The hatchlings looked at Zixara for confirmation. She clicked her approval, and they resumed their game, now with more confidence. Katie watched them with wonder. "My dad's helmet has become a toy. That sounds wrong, but it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." "It is not just a toy," Zixara said. "It teaches them. Every child who sits in it learns about your father. We make sure of that." Helen Hayes placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Your father always said that children were the future. He would love that his helmet helps children from both worlds play together." Katie reached into her bag and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. "I brought something. I wanted to add it to the memorial, if that is okay." She unwrapped the cloth to reveal a military medal, bronze, and shaped like a star. It gleamed in the sunlight. "This is the Star of Valor," Helen explained. "Daniel was awarded it posthumously for his actions that day. It is one of the highest honors in our military. We want it to be here, with his helmet, so people know that Earth remembers him too. Zix felt honored beyond words. Are you sure? This is very valuable. My dad is not in that medal, Katie said. He is here. In this garden. In the story you tell. In the children who sit in his helmet throne. That is where he should be remembered. With great ceremony, they mounted the medal on the platform beside the helmet. It caught the light, shining like a small sun. A plaque was added beneath it, explaining its significance. News spread quickly through the settlements. By evening, a crowd had gathered to witness Katie Hayes's visit. Many were the people Hayes had saved. They came forward one by one to thank Katie and Helen. Teshvik, the old Krithian whose children Hayes had saved, presented Katie with a traditional Krithian honor token, a small carved stone that represented bravery. Your father gave my children a future. Please accept this as thanks from my family. Lisa Moreno, the human soldier who had served with Hayes, saluted Katie with tears streaming down her face. Your dad was the best of us. I wish you could have known him as a Marine. He was always cracking jokes, always looking out for everyone. Katie listened to every story, collecting memories of a father she barely remembered. With each story, the sadness in her eyes lessened just a bit, replaced by pride and understanding. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, a special announcement was made. Mayor Grant and Councillor Veshkara stood together at the memorial. Today we honor not just Lieutenant Daniel Hayes, Grant said, but also the young Krithian who made sure his sacrifice was not forgotten. Zix turned a helmet into a throne, and then turned that throne into a bridge between our peoples. Veshkara continued. We announce today the creation of the Hayes Memorial Youth Exchange Program. Human and Krithian young people will have the opportunity to visit each other's worlds, learn each other's cultures, and build friendships. Zix will be the first Krithian participant, traveling to Earth for 3 months. Zix antennae shot straight up in shock. Earth? I am going to Earth? If you want to, Commander Turner said with a smile. Katie has agreed to host you. You can learn about human culture, see the oceans and forests Katie has told you about, and continue building the friendship you started. Katie grabbed Zix front legs excitedly. Say yes. Please say yes. You can meet my friends, go to my school, see where my dad grew up. It will be amazing. Zix looked at Elder Mothrek. The old Krithian's antennae were vibrating with emotion. Go, little one. You have earned this. See the universe. Build bridges. Make your mother proud. Yes, Zix said, her voice stronger than she felt. Yes, I want to go. The crowd erupted in cheers and clicks. Human children and Krithian hatchlings danced together around the memorial garden, celebrating the announcement. Later, as the twin suns finally set and the stars emerged in the violet sky, Katie and Zix sat together beside the helmet throne. Around them, the garden was peaceful, lit by soft lights that made the flowers glow. I was so angry when my dad died, Katie admitted quietly. I hated everyone. I hated the military for sending him here. I hated the Krithians for fighting the war. I even hated him a little for leaving me. Zix listened, understanding that sometimes people needed to speak their pain. But then I heard about you, Katie continued. A little alien kid who found his helmet and turned it into something special. Who cared enough to clean it and keep it safe? Who wanted to honor him, even though you did not know him? It made me think that maybe his death meant something after all. Your father saved my people, Zix said. That means everything. You saved me too, Katie said, looking at Zix. You gave me a reason to stop being angry. You showed me that good can come from bad things, that people can be kind even when the world tells them to be enemies. They sat in comfortable silence. Two young beings from different worlds, connected by a helmet and a story of sacrifice. What do you think your dad would say if he could see this? Zix asked. Katie smiled, a real smile with no sadness in it. He would probably make a joke about his helmet getting more attention than he ever did. Then he would cry happy tears and hug everyone. He was like that, brave but soft. I wish I could have met him, Zix said. You kind of did, Katie replied. Through his helmet, his recordings, his actions. You know the important parts of who he was. The parts that matter. As the night deepened, families began arriving at the memorial. It had become a tradition to gather there on clear nights. Humans and Crithians sitting together, sharing food and stories. The memorial was no longer just a place to remember the dead. It had become a place to celebrate life and friendship. Zix Era watched human children chase Crithian hatchlings through the garden in a game that had no rules and needed no translation. Their laughter filled the air, pure and joyful. Elder Mothrek approached and settled beside her. You have done well, little one. Better than I could have imagined when you dragged that helmet home. I just kept what I found, Zixara said modestly. No, Elder Mothrek corrected gently. You saw value where others might have seen trash. You saw a person behind an object. You saw a possibility in the past. Those are not small things. Helen Hayes joined them, sitting on the platform steps. My husband used to say that the best memorials are living ones. Places where people gather and life continues. He would be so proud of this. Tell me more about him, Zixara asked. Tell me what he was like before the war. Helen's face softened with memory. Daniel was a teacher before he enlisted. He taught history at a middle school. He loved kids. Loved seeing them learn and grow. When the war started, he said he had to go because teachers protect children, whether in a classroom or on a battlefield. He was always a protector. Katie added. Even when I was little. Before the war. He would check under my bed for monsters and tell me he would keep me safe forever. He kept that promise. He just did it for other kids too, not just me. Zix Ara absorbed these stories, adding them to the collection she kept in her mind. Every story made Hayes more real, more complete. He was not just a name on a helmet anymore. He was a teacher, a father, a protector, a friend. Commander Turner made her way to the group. The transport ship leaves in 3 days, Zix Ara. Are you ready for Earth? I think so, Zixara said, though her antennae trembled with nervousness. It will be very different from here. I think so. It will, Turner agreed. But you have done harder things than travel to a new world. You turned a piece of war into a symbol of peace. Earth will be easy compared to that. Earth will be easy compared to that. Katie squeezed Zixara's leg in her hand. I will be with you the whole time. We are friends now. Friends help each other. Friends, Zixara repeated, liking the sound of the word. 3 days later, Zixara stood at the memorial one last time before leaving for Earth. She climbed onto the platform and sat in the helmet throne. Just as she had done so many times before, but now the helmet felt different. It was not hers anymore. It belonged to everyone. It belonged to the future. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. Finding the helmet in the sand. Learning about Hayes. Meeting Katie. Building the memorial. All of it had started with simple curiosity and led to something bigger than she could have imagined. Goodbye, Hayes, she whispered to the helmet. Thank you for teaching me that bravery is not about fighting. It is about protecting. It is about seeing people as people, not enemies. I will carry that lesson with me. She climbed down and joined Katie, Helen, Commander Turner, and Elder Mothrek at the transport ship. A crowd had gathered to see her off, humans and Crithians together, waving and clicking their farewells. As the ship lifted off and Varath Prime grew smaller below, Zixara pressed against the window, watching the memorial garden until it was just a tiny green spot in the purple desert. Nervous? Katie asked, sitting beside her. A little, Zixara admitted. But excited too. I am going to see your world. I am going to learn about humans. Then I will come back and teach my people what I learned. That is what the exchange program is for, Helen said. Building understanding through experience. Your generation will prevent wars, not fight them. Zixara thought about that. Her generation. The children who played in the memorial garden, who sat together in the helmet throne, who learned each other's languages and shared each other's food. They were the future. They would remember Hayes and all the others who died in the war. But more importantly, they would remember why those deaths should never happen again. As Vareth Prime disappeared behind them and the stars stretched endlessly ahead, Zix Era felt ready. Ready for Earth. Ready for new experiences. Ready for the responsibility of being a bridge between worlds. The Helmet Throne would be waiting when she returned. Other children would sit in it, play in it, learn from it. Hayes's legacy would continue, carried forward by the small hands and legs of children who never knew war, only peace. And perhaps, Zixara thought, that was the best throne of all. Not a seat of power, but a seat of hope. A throne that anyone could claim because it belonged to everyone.